We are tonight's entertainment.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Excellent!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Movie Mania podcast, where we talk from past, present, and future. I am Sherman Trey White of Podcast Media, and joining me is the man, the myth, the legend. He belonged in a museum. Oh wait, wrong movie. Trillbee / Mr. Tardis.
Oh, wrong Harrison Ford movie, but points for trying.
Points
I think are you in the correct decade at least?
I believe so, right? Wasn't like only like a year before was Raiders? So. Yeah, 81. The Blade Runner was 82.
Yeah, but I'm doing okay, thanks. How are you doing, Trey?
Tired. You know, I moved. I helped someone move house yesterday, as you guys in the foreign lands like to say. And I was shooting some stuff yesterday, and I've been doing this stuff for the musical, so I'm just, run ragged, college applications and FAFSAs and all that fun
How's that
stuff going.
How's the musical going?
It's going pretty good, actually. Writing down blocking isn't great. It's not the most fun thing to do, but it's it's stuff, I suppose. You should all come watch it. all 1,000 of you that subscribe to me. I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which was fun.
That'd be pretty cool though. If every single Movie Mania listener came to the musical on the same night,
because it usually sells out on Friday nights, and so I can just imagine just like Friday just full of people. Oh, that'd be great.
What if we all buy a ticket, so they have to extend the run by an extra night just to accommodate all of us?
Yeah.
And then you can actually put at the bottom of your poster, adding extra shows due to increased demand.
Nice.
Yeah, but no podcast for 2 weeks. That's my fault. I put my hand up in the air and say that was because I couldn't do them.
That's fine. 2
weeks ago I was unable to record because I was going to be filming before he wakes the day after, and then the next weekend I was away in London for work, so I wasn't able to record then. So my fault for the slight hiatus.
No, absolutely. No, they're used to it.
Yeah, that's right. But I figured it's important to be transparent and to give blame where blame is due, and this time the blame is aimed squarely at me.
Finally,
so,
it's finally Trillbee's fault.
It's fine. Yeah, it took 2 years for the podcast, and it was finally my fault for something. That's a pretty good run. I feel like in my office I should have one of those signs that says X amount of days since it was Trillbee's fault, and now it's 0 days. I've taken the 600 day thing down, and now it says 0.
Well, it's like in Family Guy, that joke of days since presidential assassination. It's like, we can finally turn this from 0 days to 1, and there's that guy that's still covered in JFK's brains. Alright, Trillbee, let's jump into the movie news.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. Cannonball!
Alright guys, this is the movies portion of the show, in which case we talk about the movie news that's occurred over the last couple of weeks. For starters, there has been mass suicide across the galaxy. As Star Wars fans realize that Disney has not learned their lesson. As J.J. Abrams is set to direct Star Wars Episode 9. Trilby, what do you think about this?
Okay, he's not my first choice, or my second, or my third, but it makes sense. I can't blame Lucasfilm or Kathleen Kennedy for the decision. It's just, it seems really, really safe. And I don't know if Episode 9 is the time to be safe, or if they should be taking more risks. I don't know, I'm kind of indifferent to the news, but I don't think JJ is a particularly great filmmaker. He is a good one, but does Star Wars deserve just good filmmakers? I don't know. Where do you stand?
I'm furious.
Oh, okay.
I can't. I've been on the let's defend Lucasfilm train for so long. I was defending the fact that we were getting new Star Wars movies in the first place. And I was and even after, when Force Awakens came out, I was like, yes, it's fine, we're okay, we're gonna move on from, the original trilogy, we're going to get something new. And like we said a couple weeks ago, apparently that's not where they're going with this. Apparently we're just gonna get the same thing over and over, and it makes me incredibly concerned for The Last Jedi. Because if Lucasfilm is really not willing to diverge from the classic Star Wars formulas and the classic things that we remember Star Wars for being, and not willing to do something new and inventive with this franchise, then why get somebody as like Rian Johnson, who is a different kind of filmmaker, to make a Star Wars movie? At this point, I feel like you're just hiring him because the name will draw in a specific kind of crowd. And J.J. Abrams, he has not been known to make movies that are in any way inventive and creative. Even his Star Trek reboot is essentially Star Wars, you know, and it's, you know, I haven't seen Mission Impossible 3 in probably 8 years, but I feel like if now was not the time for Lucasfilm to say, we're going to get J.J. Abrams again, you know, like we just lost not the Russo brothers, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and the whole Gareth Edwards thing, so why bring J.J. on? This is the worst time to do that. I get if you're doing a new trilogy, maybe, because The Force Awakens was such a success, I would get that. But to bring him back to close it out, we already know what happened last time he tried returning to a franchise that he kicked off, you know? We got Into Darkness.
Yeah, it's strange that with J.J. Abrams, his defining trait as a director, as a filmmaker, is being able to ape the 1980s and the 1990s in his style. That's like his singular vision as a filmmaker, and I think I wouldn't really even call him much of an auteur, because he's just been, from the very beginning of his career when he worked on Mission Impossible 3, he's been given Hollywood tentpoles and blockbusters and a load of money to spend. I don't know how he is as an actual filmmaker, if that makes sense. I don't get much of a unique vision from him. And like, not every single filmmaker needs to have. I would think.
Yeah.
It's Spielberg light and lens flares.
Yeah,
that is his predominant style. And it's not to say that he's not a bad filmmaker. He's fine. I just think that maybe Star Wars Episode 9 maybe deserves better. But I think with J.J. Abrams, he's spent so much of his career setting up mysteries and just never paying them off. So what he does is that for Episode 7, he sets up Rey, he sets up Snoke, he sets up all these mysteries and these mystery box aspects and these plot points. And then he's like, I'll let someone else deal with it. And then one day, a few weeks ago, he gets the call from Lucasfilm and he says, hey, it's Kathleen Kennedy. I just thought I'd let you know that we've let go of Colin Trevorrow. We'd like to have you back for Episode 9. I mean, you set up all of those things in Episode 7. Of course you've got ideas to pay them off, haven't you? You've got to come back. And then JJ's just like, yes, I know exactly how to pay off those ideas. And then he jumps out a window. Right, so, okay, it will be interesting at least to see if he actually, for once in his entire career, actually has a payoff that justifies the setup.
Yeah.
That will be interesting to see, but I don't want Star Wars to be that guinea pig. Like, I don't consider Star Wars to be a formative franchise in my life. I love the films, but it's not like it's not, say, the same impact that it's probably had on yourself, Trey, or many of our listeners. But I still care for it a lot. I still enjoy the films. I just don't want Star Wars to be that guinea pig for JJ to see if he can actually, write a third act.
Yes.
I would rather he did something else in order to see if he could do that.
I already don't like Return of the Jedi, so like they're already on nervous terms for me for that, because Episode 9 is the first time that we have the chance of a third movie in a Star Wars trilogy being any good. I kind of like Revenge of the Sith in the same way I kind of like Return of the Jedi. I don't think either are good films, though, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is a great technical accomplishment in terms of, like, it's great in terms of visuals and sound and all that stuff, but it's also benefits from obscenely low expectations.
It's what is it that Honest Trailer said? Like, that by definition, this is considered the good one. I don't know. Like, Episode 3 looks, I guess for 2005, maybe. But then again, Munich came out in 2005, and that movie looks gorgeous. Episode 5 doesn't look, or Episode 5, excuse me, Episode 3 doesn't look great. Especially when, I don't know, a lot of the stuff looks really flat and dull and...
Personally, I still think it holds up. Now, I've not seen it like on Blu-ray or anything in recent years. It's just been the DVD quality, so maybe that adds something or detracts from it. But I still think technically that film holds up for the most part, even if the green screen is quite obvious.
I guess
that could. Yeah. Maybe we're just trained to see Star Wars, George Lucas directed films and the green screen. Maybe we're just trained to do that at this point.
I mean, compare it to another film that came out around the same time, which is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I think that dragon sequence in Harry Potter is still holds up and is still very good looking in comparison to Obi-Wan riding that giant lizard thing up that rocky cliff, or Obi-Wan in this weird, flat, yet somehow massive room fighting General Grievous with no weight to it, anything whatsoever. Or even the opening scene, which just feels like a bunch of noise and nonsense. Granted, the opening tracking shot's pretty good, but once they actually get onto Platypus, excuse me, Palpatine's ship.
Palpatine is on the platypus, the one crawling with platypus droids.
It's like the Shooting Stars meme, but it's just Palpatine on a platypus. Now, once they actually got onto Palpatine's ship, it again looks like they're not actually standing on anything. And then R2-D2 does that weird thing with the oil, and it all just looks terrible, in my opinion.
I disagree with you on a few things, but I'm not worked up enough about that film to defend it.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, we're gonna have to talk about them eventually.
Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this. Apparently not.
Apparently not. That's Disney. That's Disney right now. Lucasfilm, like, wait, we're smarter than this. But it appears not.
Wait, why did we get the guy who did Book of Henry? We're smarter than this. Apparently not.
It's just JJ in the background. Apparently not. I like the lava fight, I guess. The lava fight's pretty sick. Yeah.
Bit long.
Goes on. Yeah, I was gonna say it goes on for 3 minutes too long, but besides that, I really like it.
But yeah, it's just like making love. It goes on for way too long, and then you just lose your limbs at the end of it.
Speaking from an incredibly traumatic experience.
I'm speaking more about how mantises make love to each other and just bite the other person's body off.
They become Cronenberg people.
Cronenberg mantis.
That's a random fact. Did you ever?
Amazing.
Did you ever watch VeggieTales when you were younger? Do you know what that is? Do you know what VeggieTales is?
I think I used to watch it. I don't have much.
It's like,
is it the CGI weird
CGI vegetables teaching children about Jesus? And I'm not going to get political on
What?
this show. And that was the whole point. Like, I always watched them in church because they were like super based around like Christian faith and teaching kids about the story of Christ or whatever. And I was forced to watch it back when I went to church. I'm not going to get political and talk about religion. I saw a tweet, and it was the scene from Pickle Rick, except they turned it over and it was one of the vegetables from VeggieTales, and it was really funny. It's just a random thought I had in my brain. Anyways,
I'm just looking at it, and the series is still going on Netflix.
Is it really?
Well, apparently Netflix has got a 2017 series called VeggieTales in the City.
Maybe they're not. I wonder if they're still talking about Jesus. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, see, because while there is obviously religion in the UK and it's very prominent, it's not as, say, all-encompassing as it is stateside. Yeah. So VeggieTales is maybe something I may have seen pictures of in a couple of clips, but it wasn't really prominent here at all. But yeah, that's like, out of all the things you could do, why vegetables?
I don't. Oh yeah, that's
why do I need an asparagus telling me who my Lord and Savior is?
Yeah, right. Like, kids already don't like being forced to do things, and they already don't like vegetables. So like, that just seems like a weird. Like, why not have like a chocolate bar explain to you how awesome Jesus is? You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna propaganda me at age 7, at least do it with something I like. I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't like cucumbers to this day. I still can't stand cucumbers and tomatoes.
If you got like Willy Wonka in saying "There's no life I know to compare with our Lord and Savior," then yeah, I'll be really I'll listen
and
to
Savior
that.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, Charlie Bucket's a Christ figure anyway. He sacrifices everything in the end, and still gets to be the good guy.
Gets to be the good guy. You lose.
Yeah, it works out.
Judas.
Judas.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we compared Willy Wonka to Jesus Christ. All right.
How do we even get to that?
I don't know.
Welcome to the Movie Mania Tangent Podcast.
James Cameron's back at it again. Apparently, Terminator's happening. We're getting a 6th Terminator movie. Apparently, but apparently, according to him, it's gonna be more like Terminator 3, I guess. And Linda Hamilton's back, but I don't know if Arnold Schwarzenegger's back. I don't know. This story seems a little off to me.
Okay, from what I'm hearing, because there was the Terminator 2 3D re-release screenings recently, and they did a Q&A with James Cameron and Tim Miller, who is the director of Deadpool, who is apparently doing Terminator 6, is that they'll be doing... it's the start of a new trilogy, which will be the 4th attempt at trying to do a new Terminator trilogy.
Yeah. I think that's amazing.
And I like Terminator 3. I have a soft spot for Salvation. Genesis, not good. But for Terminator 6, they'll be bringing back Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger. and that's kind of all that we've got. And they already have a release date pegged for July 2019.
That's ambitious. That makes me think it's going to be a smaller style film, right? Because, I mean, you got to... I mean, unless the script's already written... But I mean, you've got to write the script. You've got to do the whole shebang, and got to do, if it's going to be 2019, that's a year and a half away, maybe something like that. And so, I mean, that's like you got to do all the visual effects, and I mean, depending on what the scale of the movie is, you can get that out easily in a year and a half, I guess. But
yeah, if you did something on the same scale as the first Terminator, or something more mid-budgeted in the vein of Deadpool. Which Tim Miller would be good at.
Maybe like the first Kingsman or something like that.
Yeah, like then I'm all for a Terminator reboot, or like even though Genesis was not a good film, I still have a soft spot in my heart for this franchise. Terminator 2 is my favourite movie. I grew up watching the original trilogy, even though the third one's not really part of it. This semantics, but I want this to work. I want to live in a world where I can go and watch good, brand new Terminator films. I just don't know where else you can take this story. I liked the Sarah Connor Chronicles, that was interesting, but I don't know whether or not you need Linda Hamilton back. I actually kind of liked the send-off they gave her in Terminator 3, where she dies off screen, but what they do is that they return to a church, and they find out that she's buried there, and the Terminator punches through the wall, takes the coffin out as John Connor tries to stop him from doing that, and realises that in the coffin is just full of ammunition and weapons. And it turns out that she left them there in accordance to her will, and her ashes were scattered somewhere else. I actually thought that was a really clever way of incorporating her legacy in the film, and that's something she'd do. But it's also similar to Jamie Lee Curtis returning for this Halloween reboot next year. Does this need to happen?
No, I was like, I almost tweeted when I found out. I was like, "But gay? But why? Like, why do you need?" The whole rebooting of the 80s horror classics, like it's not that difficult to reboot. Like a Friday the 13th movie, you literally just need a cast of like 8 people, 6 people maybe, and
and a big guy who can wear a mask,
and like The Rock in a mask. You know what I mean? Like you really don't need.
I'll settle for the Undertaker.
Yeah, like you just a tall guy that you can even put like a bodysuit on him and then a mask, and then go out into the woods, which there are plenty of woods around. Like there's a woods by my house. Like there's not, and like so Halloween it's even easier. You just need a house and some teenagers and a guy in a William Shatner mask. You don't need to. You don't need to Force Awakens Halloween or Terminator. Terminator is easy too. Terminator's not that hard to do either. Go back in time with it. Like, I mean, like, go back in time. I'm talking, like, how about the 1920s, the 1960s? You know the movie they did in Terminator Genesis when they were, like, they sent a Terminator back to the 70s to protect a, like, 7-year-old Sarah Connor against a T-1000. I'd pay to see that movie, because that sounds awesome. But we didn't see that movie.
No, I'd pay to see a movie where a T-101 goes back in time to protect Jamie Lee Curtis from Michael Myers, and then you just you just do a proper crossover for the whole thing. It reminds me of when Sigourney Weaver.
Wait, that's your trailer, Trilby. That's your trailer, isn't it? Like Jamie Lee Curtis is like she's like running from Michael Myers. She's like, I'm gonna take you, and she has the knife, and then you just hear and like someone punches the wall, and you just hear dun 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 dun, and little Hamilton's like, get in, and it's just like what? And then the Terminator steps out, it's like starts fighting Michael Myers, and it's like this summer. Oh, I'd pay money to see that.
Jamie Lee Curtis is running down a hospital corridor like the one in Halloween 2. And then round the corner comes Arnold Schwarzenegger, dropping the box of roses, stepping on the rose, shoots Michael Myers in the head, and then Michael Myers got a big hole in his head, which then morphs into the liquid metal.
It's the T-1000! Yes! Oh, man. We just did... Oh, man. And, like, suddenly people realize in the movie, like, did this just turn into Terminator 2 with Jamie Lee Curtis?
A guaranteed $1 billion box office, but 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
At least $40 million opening week, just to see if people are like just curious of like, have you seen this new Terminator movie? This new Halloween movie that turned out to be Terminator? It's like when you watch Split and it turned out to be like an Unbreakable sequel. You're like, hold on, guys, you ought to check this one out. Spoilers for Split,
But
by the way. Whoops.
I was going to say, but it reminds me of when Sigourney Weaver was meant to be coming back for Neil Blomkamp's Alien, and it's like, okay, so we almost had Sigourney Weaver, we're getting Linda Hamilton, we're getting Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, I'm sure there's some other older actresses who have yet to be discovered, who have yet to play iconic characters who you could cast. Like, you don't need to just dredge up the 80s. I don't know.
I don't understand.
Or maybe that's just
like,
me.
why.
That's just me being optimistic.
Also, I've come to the conclusion, I think my favorite decade ever might be the 70s. We're going to get to that when we get to the homework section, but, like, I think I'm in love with the 70s. Just, like, the zooms and the old, grimy filmmaking style. I think I'm turning into Quentin Tarantino, and I'm kind of not sure how I feel about it, because he also loves the 70s. Anyways, it had just crossed $560 million worldwide. That's not a news story.
Yes.
That's crazy.
The highest grossing R-rated horror movie of all time, overtaking The Exorcist.
I think it's like the third or fourth highest grossing R-rated movie at a period as well, behind like Hangover and American Sniper and Deadpool. So that's
very good.
That's pretty rad.
So I've yet to see it. I'm going to try and see it next week.
Well,
but
whenever you get the chance.
I heard nothing but good things about it, and it's been a long time coming.
The reception has been mixed to positive from everything that I've heard. Yeah.
For me, it's been, even people who were like, I didn't find it that scary, still really enjoyed the themes and the direction and the performances and everything. They've fast-tracked the sequel for September 2019. Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't already have like production ready to go.
I think they already have a script. I think the script's was written before. So I don't know. That's just what I heard, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. But yeah, looking forward to seeing it, and I know that there's the new Netflix Stephen King Gerald's Game by Mike Flanagan.
Ooh,
that actually came out on Netflix like this past couple of days, and it's based off the Stephen King book where this couple go for a weekend away. Their marriage is on the rocks, and they try to spice up their sex life. So he ties her to the bed, and then what happens that he actually dies. He falls over and smacks his head, leaving her handcuffed to the bed in the middle of nowhere, and she starts to lose her mind.
Ooh.
And that seems like such a great premise for Netflix to tackle this low budget psychological thriller.
Oh, and it's Mike Flanagan. All right, you've got me. I'm in. That's all I need.
Well, it was considered an unfilmable movie, but Stephen King actually looked at a rough cut a few months ago and tweeted that it was amazing and that he loved what he was seeing. So I don't know what he thinks of the finished version or if he has given his thoughts on it, but it's on Netflix. If you've got it, you're not really paying anything extra to go watch it. So it's a good way to spend 90 minutes, I think, just watching a woman handcuffed to a bed. That just sounds like my Friday nights anyway. So
truly, that's what you want to tell us?
It just on a screen. Just on a screen.
Speaking of things you don't want to watch on the screen, the Tomb Raider trailer came out.
I thought you were going to say Flatliners. I don't know why.
Why would I ever bring up Flatliners? Because God forbid,
0% on Rotten Tomatoes, bombed at the box office.
Got a lower score than the Emoji Movie. How does that make you feel, Sony? How many good movies has Sony released this year? How many successful ventures have they done? Spider-Man, technically.
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah, technically.
I think they had one at the beginning of the year, but you go to the next story. I will find out. I will research this using the power of Wikipedia.
Oh, careful! You don't want to mess up the Skype when you're googling. You don't want Sony to get hacked again. Somehow that messes up the Skype call.
Somehow they've gotten through my laptop, and that's how they hack
Just
it.
a hammer comes out and smashes against your screen. No, but the Tomb Raider trailer is out. Awful, just awful.
Okay, I liked all of it except for whenever anyone said anything.
Right? Well, I'm not even sure I liked what I saw, visually. Maybe it's because I'm not a big Alicia Vikander person. Because she hasn't really impressed me in anything I've seen her in. I thought she was fine in Ex Machina, but I feel like Ex Machina is Oscar Isaac's film. That's just my opinion. But I'm not a big fan. What was that Eddie Redmayne the Danish girl? Didn't like that movie. I'm not what's his name? Yeah. Tom Hooper needs to stop making movies. He's just boring me to tears. He's like,
see, I love the King's Speech, but I don't like anything else he's ever
done.
did
he do King's Speech?
He did.
Right,
yeah, I love King's Speech.
He's got me there. But didn't he also do Les Mis?
Yes.
Or as I call it, pull the camera back, please. Because the movie's just all close-ups. Like, come on.
And I'm Javert.
Russell Crowe has to say it.
2, 4, 6, 1.
The worst part is, that's exactly how he sounds.
I know. I'm
I
sorry.
love Nostalgia Critic's review of that movie.
I'm sorry,
by the
Russell
way.
Crowe. I'm sure you're very angry in real life.
Yeah, I like you and the nice guys there. Yeah, that you made yourself better. Well, and we're Alicia Vikander. I didn't like her in Jason Bourne. Has she been in anything else major than that? No. Was she in Assassin's Creed? She dropped out of Assassin's Creed, right? To do Jason Bourne.
Yeah, that was Marion Cotillard.
Yeah.
But okay, so this year Sony had Passengers at the end of last year, which was actually a financial success. Life, which I think broke even. Smurfs: The Lost Village, which was a bit of a flop.
Yep.
Rough Night, which did not do
Wow.
well. The Emoji Movie.
Wow.
The Dark Tower, which was
Wow.
also a bomb. Flatliners. They've got the new Blade Runner.
Oh, they're doing Blade Runner with Warner Brothers, aren't they?
I think depending on the territory. Or international distributions outside of America, it will be done by Sony. They've also got the new Jumanji film, which also had a trailer a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't look like the worst thing I've ever seen, but
It looks like Journey to the Mysterious Island, but with Kevin Hart.
but it was weird having watching a trailer for Jumanji and Tomb Raider on the same day. It wasn't on the same day, but I think
And
that
yet
I watched them both on the same
Jumanji
day.
looks better. That's the going back to Tomb Raider just looks, everything from it just seems like nothing. Even with the Assassin's Creed trailer, when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, this can be cool. It's a concept that we don't get a lot of in movies. The thought of, we're gonna flash back to your past, but we're gonna have this kind of connection between the present and the past, and we're gonna have this really cool look to it, and everything looks really. And Jeremy Irons is in it. Fassbender, Marion Cotillard, great cast. And then it was awful. Warcraft, you had Doug Jones, who is easily was a very promising filmmaker from movies like Moon and Source Code. Source Code being one of my favorite movies ever. And then Warcraft sucked too. And I can't think of any. Prince of Persia was terrible. Video game movies have just never worked. And the only time they usually ever do is when they're not about. When they're not based on a game, but when they're about games, i.e.,
when they're animated.
Or when they're animated.
I think there's a few.
Wreck-It Ralph,
There's
Scott
a few
Pilgrim.
but there's a few actual video game adaptations that are animated, like the Professor Layton and the Eternal Diva. There's a couple of the Pokemon movies which are actually not that bad. There's a couple of Resident Evil animated CGI ones that are okay. They've actually got a new Pokemon movie coming out next month in the UK, and it's a recreation of the very first episode, but it's 90 minutes long and animated, as in modern animation.
I guess.
I don't see the point, but okay.
I'm nervous because Sony owns the rights to The Last of Us, and if they ever do if they ever make a movie out of The Last of Us, it's gonna have to be Sony to do it. So I kind of want them to wait 30, 40 years until after all the executives currently at Sony are no longer with us or no longer at that company, and we have some kind of new regime at Sony to make sure that we can get a good Last of Us movie, because Tomb Raider looks awful.
Well, I know for a fact that in Tomb Raider they actually did a lot of location filming, but it does look kind of over stylized, and it looks like they are filming on a soundstage or a green screen.
Or it looks
especially when she falls off that log into the water.
Quantum of Solace,
Whereas,
they did the same thing.
Yeah,
They shot a location, and they processed the computer too much and it looked fake.
Yeah, maybe they are trying to go for that over stylized look, but knowing that they actually did go out in the wilderness, and Alicia Vikander did about 90% of her own stunts, it does look a bit too artificial. Maybe it is just a problem with the trailer, and the actual finished film when it comes out in March will look significantly better. I didn't hate this trailer like you did, but it was one of those things that film is coming out next year.
Yeah.
I might go see it.
We may see it from movie Mania, depending on what we're doing that week. Okay. Let me ask a question. So, I thought that this was going to be, because the first Tomb Raider game, I believe, the rebooted one, I believe it was she has to become the Lara Croft that we know from the classic games. I believe that's the setup, isn't it? That she's on this island, and there are these a-holes on the island, and and by the time the end game is over, she's like, "Oh, I'm now Lara Croft from the games. Let's go shoot dinosaurs or whatever, which is my ideal Tomb Raider game, by the way.
Let's dual
PS2.
wield pistols and shoot a dinosaur.
Yeah, swim with pointy boobs and shoot dinosaurs. That's my Lara Croft. But this looks like it's doing that. I can't remember if that's the actual plot of the game where her father goes missing and she has to go look for him. That sounds very classic Tomb Raider to me, but at the same time... Huh?
I believe I think that's actually a similar plot to the sequel, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Okay. Where she starts off at home and then she has to go on another adventure. Yeah. And I feel like maybe the call to adventure stereotypical plot line is taken from Rise of the Tomb Raider, but the actual island stuff will be from Tomb Raider.
It's such a nothing plot line that every movie ever about islands do. It's like, someone's gone missing, I have to go look for him. Why not just have her be an adventurer that's maybe gets kind of, I don't know, skittish or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're gonna do a video game movie, do something different, because this just looks like a bland piece of nothing. Not to mention the jump at the end where she's just like, I was like that. I laughed out loud, and she jumps off the cliff, and it looks like something from like PS3 era graphics.
Well, if the film's just going to be 90 to 100 minutes on this generic island adventure, that's fine, as long as it is the most badass and inventive and stylish island adventure I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The characters don't have to be incredibly compelling. It just needs to compensate in other areas. But I don't see that happening with this. I'm interested in because this guy who's directing it, Raw Uthog, seems a relative unknown, Norwegian director who did The Wave a few years ago, which I've not seen, but it won on it was like a contender for best foreign language film. I don't think it got nominated though. But The Wave is meant to be a really, really good disaster film. And then immediately he just starts doing Tomb Raider. Maybe that could be a Gareth Edwards doing Godzilla after one film. It's kind of mixed bag. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But the trailer didn't really have me convinced. But we'll see.
Yes. All right. That's all the news I have written down here. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think that's actually kind of it. At least stuff that I want to talk about.
All right. Right on. Well,
unless you want to talk about Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle.
No, Trillbee. I think we got them. In fact, I think I'm just going to diverge quickly from that as possible and jump right into the homework.
This week, each one of you has a homework assignment.
Your homework is to listen to some real music, get inspired.
Is this your homework, Larry?
Down with homework?
40. Alright guys, this is the homework portion of the show, because we saw movies we either assigned to see or just saw on our own. Starting off, Trillbee, I saw a movie yesterday, a movie I kind of was looking forward to for a bit and then forgot about for a second, and I was about to go see American Made with Tom Cruise, which apparently is pretty good. I was looking forward to. I'm a big Doug Liman fan. And then my friend was like, but wait, Battle of the Sexes is out. And I really wanted to see that. And so I went and saw Battle of the Sexes, which, if you guys don't know, is a movie set in the 1970s with Steve Carell and Emma Stone as tennis players. One is a young, kind of upcoming tennis player, Billie Jean King, who was also a very active role in women's equality and feminism and all that stuff. You know, the kind of stuff that feminism is actually supposed to be about, wink wink. And then you have Bobby Riggs, I think his name is, who is he's kind of slightly washed up, gambling problem, typical deadbeat dad who's also a great tennis player and kind of wants to get back into it. And through a series of circumstances, they end up having this really big climactic tennis match where someone has to come out on top. And it's really, really good. I can't remember the name of the two people who directed it, but it's shot by Linus Sandgren, I think his name is. Who you may recognize as he won last year for La La Land as cinematography. And so it's a very beautiful movie. It's shot like it's in the 70s. I mentioned the 70s earlier, and I think I'm in love with the decade because there's a lot of zooms. They shot in both 35 and 16 millimeter film, so it looks really like grainy, but at the same time it's also really crisp and gorgeous to look at. Emma Stone is exceptional in this movie. There's a point where you forget that you're watching Emma Stone, and that's always nice to know because she has such a recognizable face. So to there be a point where I feel like I'm just watching the character of Billie Jean King play tennis. It was nice to see that I have finally seen what I think she's capable of as an actor. So the best way to put it is that I think she has finally achieved the level of great actress. I don't personally think she should have won for La La Land, but if she were to win for this film, this makes more sense to me than La La Land. Steve Carell is great as always. He brings more of the Michael Scott-ish aspects to it. If you guys have ever seen The Office, he brings more of that style to his. He has more comedic relief, but at the same time, you forget he's a very good dramatic actor. He's quite good in this. He's not as good as he is in something like The Big Short, which I love.
He should have been nominated for that.
For The Big Short, zero, none. I love that movie so much, but but he has moments like that in this film, and he's really good in it as well. Sarah Silverman's in it as Billie Jean's assistant / like agent, and she's really good. She's a lot of fun. Overall, it's just I think it's not only an important film because it also touches on things about homosexuality and lesbians. I was going to say lesbianism, but I don't think that's a term. But it also touches on things like that. And not only, it's nice to see a movie about something that doesn't have to shove it down your throat. What's his name? Bill Pullman's in it, and he's great too. It's overall just a really well put together, really strong film that I really enjoyed. I recommend everybody see it. 8.5 out of 10. Oh, it's 20 minutes too short. That's my one complaint. Okay. It skips over certain things in relationships with certain people. I feel like if they gave the movie a longer runtime, we could have easily developed more and would have had more stake in the final tennis match between the two.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's one of those. It's being pegged as like an Oscar frontrunner at the moment in terms of its performances. But it's also the directors Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris, who did Little Miss Sunshine. And also,
that's what they did. Yeah.
They also did Ruby Sparks, and I really like Ruby Sparks. If you've not seen it, it's basically a story about this writer played by Paul Dano. It was a 2012 film. It was really the first time I noticed Paul Dano, who is unable.
Someone hadn't seen There Will Be Blood.
Not at that time. I've seen it since, but it was the first time I noticed Paul Dano. Even if it wasn't chronologically in terms of his career. And he's terrible at love, and he has this idea of this manic pixie dream girl person he wants to fall in love with, so he writes her in this book, and then she comes to life. And it seems like it's just going to be the most cliche, trite, Zooey Deschanel manic pixie dream girl thing ever, but it's an amazing subversion of it, and it's really clever, and it even plays out like a horror film in the final act, and it's really underrated. Hardly anyone's seen it, but go see Ruby Sparks. It's probably on Netflix somewhere or in a bargain basement DVD or something. But yeah, but I'm looking forward to Battle of the Sexes though, very much so.
Yeah, Battle of the Sexes. It's I don't say it's a lot of fun, but it's just like, oh, I'm watching a really good movie right now, and you kind of get that it has that like. How do I say this without sounding belittling? It's like the world's best Lifetime movie. In the sense of, like, it has great characters, it's kind of heartwarming, it has a good message to it. It's just a well-rounded, good film.
So kind of on par with, say, Hidden Figures?
I didn't like Hidden Figures.
Okay.
So, I guess maybe, like, if Sully was a little bit better. I don't know, because I liked Sully.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? It's like, have you seen Selma?
Yes.
It's like Selma, where you're like, that's a really good film. That's a well-made film. It's beautifully shot, good performances, good message. It's a lot like Selma in that way.
Let's say you show Selma on Lifetime and people will riot. That film gets brutal.
Yeah, you know what? You're not wrong. It doesn't have the brutality of Selma. I was about to say that, but
okay, so there's no scene where Emma Stone just bludgeons Steve Carell with a tennis racket, right?
Yeah, no. We don't get a really cool POV shot of Emma Stone falling onto the ground and then getting bludgeoned with a bat. Yeah. God, that's a cool shot in that movie.
So there's no scene where Freebird kicks in and Emma Stone just runs into the audience with a tennis racket and just mauls the entire audience.
Oh God, I wish. Oh man, that'd be great. Oh man, did you see anything else besides? We're gonna jump into Kingsman in a second, guys. But have you seen anything else besides Kingsman this week?
Not really. No, I meant to, but then I didn't.
But I meant to. Then I just decided no.
Yeah, I almost saw Logan Lucky, but it just the timings just did not work out, and I'm gutted.
I almost saw that too. All right, but that's fine.
But yes, saw Kingsman: The Golden Circle. And coming from someone who was a huge fan of Kingsman: The Secret Service, it made my top 10 for 2014. A bit let down, to be honest. I think that we'll go into spoilers in a minute, but just general thoughts. I think that the talent behind the camera and the wit and the affection for the Bond pastiche and the spy genre, it's still prevalent. It's just not in service of anything interesting. It's fun. The cast are great, and they're all game. But there's actually it's a fun time for about it's almost 2.5 hours long. It's way too long, but it's fun. It's like a really big piece of cotton candy. You're just going to consume it. You're going to have a sugar high for a bit, and then the next day it's because it'll have no nutritional value, and you'll just be hungry again. There's very little substance to it, and there's a lot I want to talk about in terms of spoiler stuff, but because very much like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which was another stylized, fun, but in my opinion kind of insubstantial sequel, there was very little given away plot-wise in the trailers, so it's kind of hard to talk about it spoiler-free. But that's just my non-spoiler thoughts. I liked it and I had a good time, but I'm a bit disappointed in it and kind of disheartened at many of the creative decisions that were made, especially in regards to setting up a potential third film. And you, Trey?
Okay, so if we're not jumping into spoilers right away... The moment the movie cuts to credits, I turn to my friend Christian and I say, I didn't hate it. I don't think I hated it. It was fine. Like, Christian was like, yeah, I liked it. I'm like, it's fine, I guess. It had some cool moments, but then I'm like, did it? Like, looking back, like, in the car ride home, I was just thinking, I'm like, what am I going to give this movie? Do I go rotten with it? Do I keep it fresh? In the end, that evening, I gave it like a 6.2, I think, out of 10. Upon reflection, and upon thinking about the film, and the plot, and the character, and the action, and the cinematography, the score, and how it's horribly recycled, it's like a 5, maybe a 4.9. I'm starting to hate this movie. Yeah. Okay, so... Trilby, I'm gonna hand you this golden, not circle, this golden, like, nugget that's, like, just lightly, I'm gonna hand you, no, correction, I'm gonna hand you this bottle.
Trey, my birthday was months ago.
My birthday's in 12 days. And in this bottle, and in this bottle contains this little thing called lightning. Now, Trilby, I'm gonna ask you to try and get lightning in a bottle again and give it back to me. Is that going to be possible? Can you catch lightning in a bottle twice? No. Then why would you try? It suffers from this thing that every movie sequel ever, except maybe John Wick 2, suffers from, in the sense that it just does this. It does the first movie again, and that's the problem that every movie, almost every sequel ever, with the exception of like 5 on my hand, failed to realize that you can't just expect to do the first movie again and have it just be good. Like, you can't just, like, 22 Jump Street works because it does the first movie again, but that's the point. And so they still have something else to work with besides the fact that they're just remaking the first movie, because Hangover 2 did that and they brought it up, and that doesn't make it a good movie. But 22 Jump Street, is incredible. Empire Strikes Back it takes everything that was established in A New Hope and builds on it, introduces new characters, brings us new worlds, new ideas of what the Force is. It develops on everything the first movie did. This one, the Kingsmen get destroyed when it's in the trailer, so it's not spoilers, and they go to the Statesman, but it takes 40 minutes for them to get there. Like, the Kingsman blows up in the first, 15 minutes, and somehow, almost an hour passes before we get to America, because we get this stupid setup scene that I won't get into about how they get to the Statesman. It doesn't make any sense. And then when we do get to the Statesman, it's just the Kingsman over again, and then Channing Tatum's in it, barely, and Jeff Bridges is in it, barely. Halle Berry's in it, and she gets fuck all of it. It's okay. Yeah, I didn't like the film.
Yeah. We'll start going spoilers. I imagine there'll be timestamps in the description. The film has the illusions of going in interesting and fun directions, and introducing the Statesman in introducing a love story between Eggsy and was it the Princess of Sweden? Was it
the anal princess?
Yeah, the anal princess. The
because they sure. But you know what? I bought it. I was okay with it. I was sure,
and it kind of mitigated the issues I had with the ending of the first Kingsman to an extent. Yeah. There is also another controversial sex scene in this film, but for me, I think the context surrounding it was not even nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. I don't know.
Should we jump into spoilers, Trill?
Yeah, okay.
I don't. Let's jump into spoilers.
I don't see why that one is that much of an issue, unless you're just really, really prude, and I completely get that in a way. But
they did spend a good it was a good 60-second shot, right?
Yeah.
Of a finger going inside a vagina. Like, and I get why
It was
it's
so
there.
tastefully shot.
But my 50 Shades
With Cara
of Grey,
Delevingne's sister.
the sex scenes were pretty well shot. No, but like okay, so my issue with that whole set piece, if you will, was that it does the first movie again. The first movie ends in what I thought was a nice homage to Jane, because the first season movie feels like a love letter to like The Spy Who Loved Me, the good Roger Moore movies like Live and Let Die and the like. But Golden Circle feels more I'm just like watching like Moonraker, like I'm just watching a bad Roger Moore James Bond movie, or or like Diamonds Are Forever, just like one that's really campy and stupid and doesn't make any sense. And the first movie ends, the girl's like, if you save the world, we'll do it in the butt. And he's like, I'll be right back. And I laughed a lot. And I was like, of course he did. And the movie ends, and Eggsy goes and finds the girl. And Q, or Merlin, if you will, is still watching, and so he closes his screen. Like in every James Bond movie ever where that happens. But in this movie, the woman needs to, like, have a tracker implanted, and so they get like this weird finger condom, and they like have to stick it up her vagina, but then Eggsy doesn't just stick it up her vagina or her nose, which they suggest, but he goes and calls his girlfriend, which at first is kind of a funny joke, I guess, but at the same time, like, it goes on for too long. What was in many ways a throwaway little wink gag in the first movie is now like this 7-minute sequence of Eggsy somehow ended up having to propose to his girlfriend.
I like the idea of following up that James Bond thing. Like, can you be a sexy super spy who has to sleep with opponents or enemies while still being in a committed relationship? And I get that. However, it's not established up until that point that Eggsy has an issue with marriage and becoming part of the royal family. It comes out of nowhere, so it's not an earned sequence. Like, it's many instances where I think the Golden Circle really underthinks and underserves its characters, particularly in many of the notable deaths in the film, which aren't even remotely earned or built up to or work thematically, because I don't really think there's anything thematically going on in the Golden Circle, other than, wasn't the first one pretty good? Here's Colin Firth, he was pretty good in the first film, wasn't he? He's got...
Let's just go to the mountains, just cause... Like, there's no...
Just because Bond
we went to the mountains and we went to the Alps in the first movie. Let's go to the Alps in this one, too.
Yeah.
Yay.
It doesn't feel like such incredibly blatant recycling, but it's still... It's more noticeable because there's so little happening. Like, there's no subtext to the film, because Kingsman the Secret Service there's a lot actually going on there, and I'm not just talking about the My Fair Lady analogy and stuff like, or Pretty Woman, as they jokingly reference.
I love that. Oh, like in My Fair Lady? That's such a good scene.
But yeah, there's a lot of politics like underneath the Secret Service, where they're talking about about Occupy Wall Street, the division between the 1% and the 99% capitalism, politicians, stuff like that.
How politicians are just focused on elections. I mean, sometimes they'll just straight up say what the movie's about. Yeah. But it works.
But with the
somehow.
Yeah, but with the Golden Circle, there's none of that there, other than, okay, maybe we underestimated how much of a dickhead the president is. I think that's kind of the only...
Oh my god, okay, so can we talk about how, like, I had to turn, I was like, are they just doing Trump? Are they just, like, were they expecting Clinton? Like, because we're at that point in movies now to where I'm not sure, because Trump won in November. I'm not sure when this movie was shot. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if it was, like, if they shot it with, like, the intention of Hillary Clinton winning that election. But they definitely shot it with Donald Trump in mind.
Yeah, he's only shot in one location, though, so they could have very easily reshot him.
Yeah, right. And then at the end, like this shorter-haired blonde older woman, I believe it was Emily Watson, ends up taking over, and CNN and Fox News. First of all, Fox News, like no way would Fox News be reporting in the way that Fox News reports in this movie. But we'll just get past that. And like this, and I just felt like I was being like so patronized and talked down to, like, wasn't this cool when they played Freebird and had this really cool one-take action sequence in this church? Now let's do Elton John. I believe it was Rocket Man. I can't remember.
No, it was Saturday Night. It's Alright for Fighting.
Yeah.
Wednesday! I actually thought that was pretty funny.
Here's what I will say. Elton John helped this movie a lot.
Yes, Elton John is really fun, but I think it's morally wrong that he beats up more people than Channing Tatum does.
That's true.
He beats up 3 people. Channing Tatum knocks out 2.
You know, I think your tweet, your Spider-Man tweet, we can apply that here. Elton John Matrix kicking 2 agent guys in slow motion, fantastic. Elton John looking directly at the camera as if to say, "Watch this," is awful.
Yeah.
So, like, that scene was ruined. I'm like, this is so cool. Elton John's killing people. Great. Oh, wait, he looked at the camera. No, never mind. Now I'm bored, and now this doesn't make any sense. It was great when the dog was going to kill Harry, and then Elton John just kind of stepped in the frame.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really fun reveal. Elton John, I thought was Elton John was one of the fun... when she's on the TV or whatever, you tell Elton John, "Fuck you" in the background. I loved all of that.
Yeah.
Too bad that he's only in the movie for like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He's barely in it.
The film has assembled a brilliant cast, and it just doesn't do anything with them because it is just Taron Egerton, Colin Firth, and Mark Strong again. And I think it was a massive mistake to kill off Roxy immediately.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Like, kill her off if you want to have some emotional stakes.
Yeah.
But don't just, like, Channing Tatum in G.I. Joe 2 hit, like, her. Like, don't just inexplicably Sarah Connor or, like, who died in Alien 3? Was it Newt? Was the one that they killed off in Alien 3? Like, don't just do that.
Yeah. And then when they kill off, like, this is full spoilers, when they kill off Merlin, because he dies at the beginning of the action sequence, and it's also in an incredibly avoidable and contrived way, because they have a mind scanner, and then it turns out Eggsy accidentally stands on one, so it's not even like the bad guys killed him. It was Eggsy's fault. Then there's no, like, emotional or thematic stakes going into the final confrontation. It's not like, say, the guy with the rocket powered fist or the mechanical arm or whatever was the one who killed him, because, well, that would even make sense because Merlin was the one who trained him, and him killing Merlin would signify a total betrayal or something. No, there's no thought in that. It's just, he's going to die to set off the events of the final action sequence, which was going to happen the exact same way regardless of whether or not Merlin was present. And I
was thinking that too. I'm like, they're gonna shoot these people no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So why not just start the action here? Maybe you're gonna have Merlin be the guy that he's gonna help shoot and fight in the action, and then if you want to have him step on the plate for some reason, maybe that's when he has to go back to being the tech guy and talk to them in their ear because he's stuck behind a bush somewhere on this plate. I mean, I don't know.
But it's implied that it's the very first time he's gone out in the field for a long time, and then he immediately dies. And then he does the Country Roads Take Me Home song for about a good 30 to 40 seconds, way too long. I think they repeat the shot of him looking to his left at Harry and to his right at Eggsy about 3 times, and it's massively milked, and it feels really disappointing that Merlin had to go out in that way. I'm fine with him not making it out of the film in principle, but the way they did it was really disappointing. And also when coupled with Roxy,
why didn't he die? Why didn't the action scene be John Denver? You know, I can't remember if they start shooting to John Denver music, but I'm pretty sure, aren't they fighting to Elton John music?
Yeah, they are. And then
in the end, why weren't they
another film
fighting
when they're fighting
to John Denver?
Yeah, I think when they're fighting Whiskey as well at the end, I'm not sure what song that is that's playing during that scene though. But it's so weird because the film has every single opportunity to give us a brand new dynamic from the first film, which was Eggsy, Galahad, and Merlin. And I thought going into the sequel that we'd get Eggsy, we would get the new Lancelot, which is Roxy, and we'd get these statesmen. And maybe there'd be Colin Firth in the fringes. But no, it is the exact same dynamic we have from the first film, because Channing Tatum is on ice for most of the film. He has one introduction scene.
Literally.
Honestly, yeah. And Halle Berry is stuck behind a computer. Yeah, she steps up at the very end, but what, they're going to kill her off at the beginning of Kingsman 3 before she even sees the field? Because that is the trajectory this franchise is going in. Pedro Pascal was actually really, really good, but he seems really underserved. He seems like he only exists and only has that twist at the end just so that the Kingsmen have a physical equal at the end, because Poppy is not it. And
I feel like this film went through some rewrites, because I feel like if they wanted to have... This movie introduces a lot of things and then just kind of doesn't do anything with them, like the fact that Harry killed Whiskey, like just point blank shot him in the head, and they use their cure for death, by the way, to bring him back.
Yep.
And they just kind of like, I have motivation now that was never established or brought up until I was already killed. Like they, great smoke alarm. You guys hear that, Shirley?
I thought you'd like scuffed your shoe on like a laminated floor or something.
No, it's like that episode of Friends with Phoebe, and she has to get the smoke alarm to stop working. Have you seen that episode?
I've seen it. Yeah,
it's one of my favorite episodes of Friends. So apologies to the listeners if you hear that over the course of the next half hour. It's not gonna stop. I'm so sorry.
Oh, great! It sounds like a Kingsman gadget is in your house now.
It's a robot dog. Yeah, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you with your Pedro Pascal talk. Who's great in Game of Thrones, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't love him in this movie. I thought he seemed a little...
Well,
maybe it was the pacing and the editing, but it seemed a little off.
Well, I liked the charming, nice Whiskey, like in the first 2/3 of the film, and then when he does turn out to be a villain in the end, you kind of, on the surface level, you get his motivation, but it does feel so rushed, and we don't know, does he want to just kill the Kingsmen, or does he just want to stop them? Is he betraying statesmen? Is he a double agent? And then at the end, when they're having their drinks at the end and Whiskey has been put in the grinder, they don't say, oh, sorry about Whiskey, by the way, or we never expected this to happen with Whiskey. Like, do you have nothing to say about this character who you thought was your colleague and he has now been killed by the Kingsmen? Like, do you have nothing to say or add to this? It's also...
Do you think that maybe they wrote... Like, was Channing Tatum, like, shooting another movie at the time of them making this? Because it just doesn't make any sense to get someone like Channing Tatum and put him literally all over the entire marketing campaign and then have him be gone for 80, 90 minutes. Like, you know, they get to Kentucky or whatever. Channing Tatum arrests them and starts interrogating them. He gets frozen, and then he's back in the last 2 minutes. So he's gone for almost 2 hours, and so why cast Channing Tatum in the movie? Well, did you just want to get butts and seats? Maybe,
but looking at films that he's been doing recently, like Logan Lucky and. Comparatively, he doesn't have that much coming out this year and next year, and from the filming schedules, he looked like he was free and fine. But there have been interviews with Matthew Vaughn recently where he's been saying he had to cut about an hour from the film, that the original cut of this film was about 3 to 3.5 hours, and considering all the stuff that's missing or has maybe been reworked in the editing room, I kind of believe him.
Why would you write a 3.5 hour script for this movie?
I know, but it's also the idea that you get... There's that really awkward, cringe-worthy scene at the dinner table when he's trying to impress the royal family of Sweden.
Every movie ever.
But it's kind of indicative of the issues with the film where his friend opens up the lighter in his office, which is a grenade, and he tells him to put it down, to shut it, and then he closes it, and there's no explosion, and it's fine, and then a missile comes in and blows him up anyway, so regardless of what was going to happen, the guy was going to die in an explosion, no matter what happened. And then they never talked to Eggsy about the outburst he had at the dinner table or the misunderstanding. It takes so many shortcuts in this film. The only death that's really mourned is the one of Roxy and JB when they're just drinking their sorrows in the whiskey, and that's because that's a plot point. It's kind of required for them to be drinking the whiskey to find out how to find the Kingsman.
I hated that scene. That's what I was talking about in the non-spoilers, of how they spent there's just a whole scene where Eggsy and Merlin just start drinking, and they have it's a scene that shouldn't happen Like, you don't need that there. Like, I get, mourn for JB and Roxy, because those are, they were big points of the first movie, and so, mourn for them, sure. But at the same time, 2 hours and 20 minutes, this movie could easily been like an hour 50. Like, cut a lot of that out. Like, you can cut out, especially as much as I love Elton John, you didn't need as much Elton John as he's in this movie. No. There are things that you can just get rid of. Get rid of the whole tracking device vagina nonsense.
This film needed to really, not even just remove stuff, just really shift the priorities. I'm fine with that runtime, but use it to develop the statesman more. Use it to, not kill off characters and maybe give them proper additions into the sequel. As much as I love Colin Firth, he just feels like a spare part in this film.
I feel like he doesn't know what he's doing, and which is weird because he's a good actor.
Yeah,
he's a great actor, and he's fantastic in the first movie. Yeah, but there's a certain point where even, while we're on Colin Firth, Trillbee, are you a film scores man?
Yes, I loved Henry Jackman's score in the original, and it's just more of the same for this one, isn't it?
When Colin Firth, when Harry gets his memory back using Mr. Pickles, the score that plays during that scene is Rage and Serenity by Henry Jackman from X-Men First Class.
What?
It's the music that plays. It's the music that plays when Magneto turns the dish.
Yeah.
The first time for you guys that don't know, and I'm telling you that because the moment I heard, because I listen to it, it's on my Spotify playlist, so I hear it a lot. So the moment I heard the I'm like, that's Rage and Serenity. Like, I automatically got it. I was like, hold on, and they play like pretty much the whole score, like the whole 2 minutes of it, and I'm like, what are they? I was very.
I'll need to rewatch it
to
pick that out.
Yeah, and I was trying to see if someone posted that scene on YouTube just in case, and I can't find the scene anywhere. But I'm genuinely sure that scene when Harry gets his memory back and like you get all the flashbacks of him shooting or not shooting Mr. Pickles or whatever, and that's one of the best lines of the first movie ever. When he's like, and I reminded about it every time I take a shit. But that scene is he reused his score. Not only from Kingsman, which I'm cool with because it's the sequel, but from a different movie, which is just lazy.
It reminds me when Alan Silvestri, who did the score for the first Avengers movie, recycled music from the A-Team movie that he worked on. Like honestly, the one long shot where the Avengers are fighting in the streets of New York, it is the exact same music that plays during the flying tank sequence.
Nice.
It has been it's been genuinely recycled.
Yeah, Michael Giacchino when he did Doctor Strange, and then which is just a Star Trek score.
Yeah,
like genuinely just the Star Trek, like that's that same riff.
But I
don't know, it bothered me.
Yeah, but for Colin Firth, I'm glad to see the character. I think that in a way they kind of justified in terms of logic, in terms of how did he survive, kind of bringing him back. I'm not really that bothered about that. But in the first film, Galahad, he embodies the film's themes. He's a privileged person who shares his wealth and principles to someone abandoned by the system, e.g. Eggsy. And he's still part of that corrupt system because, Michael Caine is still working for Valentine and for the president and everything. So Michael Caine's character, he dies, he has to go. But Galahad is still part of that system and he has to go as well. So he passes on his principles to Eggsy. Thematically, his character embodies that film. In Kingsman: The Golden Circle, there's no thematic through line here. So basically, Galahad in The Golden Circle, you liked him in the first film. That'll do it.
What is this film's theme?
There isn't one, and that's
drugs.
Yeah, well, it's
drink.
Yeah, it's
drink.
No, it's that drugs are fine, but sometimes bad. Alcohol is always a-okay, though.
Okay, so the regular morals of life, like I don't like the weed's cool, coke's bad. You have a drink. Like is that what this movie's trying to get at? Be a liberal because the president's terrible. That's what I got from it.
Well, Poppy's plan is actually quite clever, where she wants to be seen as a legitimate businesswoman because she has this massive drug empire, and if she was recognised in a legal industry, she would be the successful businesswoman in the world. So her ultimatum to the president is make these drugs illegal. That's quite clever.
Why not just be the head of a company, Matthew Vaughn? Here's my that her motivation for wanting to do what she does in this movie is so ridiculous. Like Matthew Vaughn, because he wrote the script with Jane Goodman, I think her name is. Like, why not just have Poppy be like Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs also happens to run a drug organization? I feel like that's only because you already did that in the first movie. Going back to, again, let's just do the first movie.
Yeah, like
again.
Well, her plan is fun, and I think there's some fun political commentary there. But it seems very undercut by the fact that Statesman is a alcohol business as well, and there's like even people who think that if alcohol was a brand new thing that was introduced today, it would be considered like a Class A drug. So it feels like the film isn't self-aware enough to have that commentary because it's not thinking hard enough like it wasn't in the first film. Like I said, that all the talent and the skill and the cast, it's all there and they're all game, but it's not being done in service of anything interesting. It's the Men in Black 2 of Kingsman sequels.
It really is. Okay, Chilby, let me tell you what. But Kingsman, above all the theming and the commentary, above everything else, Kingsman is an action film.
Yeah.
So, Chilby, let me ask you, why the hell is the action so awful
the action
in this movie?
I think the action was good, although the taxi sequence gave me night bus flashbacks from Prisoner of Azkaban.
It was awfully shot, and it looked terrible. I went and saw this movie in IMAX. Big mistake. Terrible special
Also,
effects.
this is just the biggest nitpick ever. You cannot have a chase sequence like that in London. The streets are too narrow. The traffic never stops. You cannot have a chase scene in London. It's the reason Edgar Wright shot Baby Driver in Atlanta.
Yeah, another big nitpick, if I may. If you're gonna have your opening scene be shot with IMAX cameras, shoot the whole thing in IMAX, please. Because you're doing this thing of like the outside will be shot with not 191 perspective, the inside will be shot in 235. Don't do that. It makes my head hurt. But you keep talking, Chubby. We were talking about the action scenes.
Also, isn't it a plot hole that we don't find out who was chasing Charlie?
Someone was chasing Charlie?
Yeah. He gets in Eggsy's taxi because there's 3 cars that are chasing him. And then they destroy all 3 of the cars in Hyde Park. Like, who is chasing Charlie? Is that actually a plot hole, an unresolved mystery?
I wasn't invested enough, I guess.
That's
I don't know.
That's fair. But yeah, the reason Charlie hijacked Eggsy was because he was getting away from 3 other cars who were chasing him.
Oh. I thought they were all working. See, there it goes.
Yeah.
I thought they were all working after to get Eggsy. Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No idea. no.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that is actually a plot hole. I think the action is fine, but I know that the church sequence in the first film, I wasn't expecting anything to top that, because the church sequence in the Secret Service is a lightning in a bottle, once in a filmmaker's career, perfect storm of...
It's like Star-Lord dancing in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get that again.
Yeah, it's just such an outstanding, perfect sequence that... Like, I would understand if you could not top it or come close to it, but...
Then I wouldn't want you to. I wouldn't want you to try and outdo yourself, do something different.
Exactly, but just to clarify, going into it, I'm understanding of that. But the fact that nothing in the Golden Circle even comes remotely close is a bit disconcerting. The bar sequence is fine, but it is recycled from the first film. It feels really strange that Colin Firth has to take out the 2 robot dogs separately instead of maybe swapping opponents halfway through, which I think would have been a lot more interesting. We don't see that many more interesting gadgets, and I think that's a disappointing aspect where the statesmen don't get more involved. We only see Pedro Pascal using his electric whip, which is pretty cool, but I don't know, what skills does Channing Tatum have? What skills does what technology that is uniquely statesman could we see in this film, but instead we're just recycling Kingsman technology.
Are they setting up Channing Tatum to be the new Kingsman? Like, is Eggsy out of the Kingsman? Is that what they're setting up?
Yes, at the end of the film they move him to Scotland. And he moves to... Or it's either London or Scotland. Either way, they say that they've bought a distillery in Scotland to rebuild Kingsman, and that's where the new base will be. But
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I thought he looked cool in a bowler hat. I thought he looked pretty cool.
He looked cool in everything except the bowler hat.
Really? I disagree completely. I really liked him in that. The glasses and everything. I thought he looked really cool.
Yeah, but it's just so weird that they have this great ensemble cast, but I'm repeating myself here, as in keeping with the Golden Circle, but you still have the same dynamic of Colin Firth, Mark Strong, and Taron Egerton. Like, you've got this whole ensemble cast here, but you're still relying on the same hits. Like, even Michael Gambon, who is the new head of Kingsman, he's gone in 5 minutes.
Is that who that was?
That was Michael
that
Gambon.
Was bothering me. I'm like, that's not Max von Sydow, but it looks a lot like him. It was bothering me for he's barely in it, but it was still bothering me for the entire movie. Like, who was that guy? Who was that old British fop?
Yeah.
Well, it was Dumbledore.
Yeah, Dumbledore. But yeah, it's a frustrating film. Like, yeah, I can't hate it because I did have so much fun on a baseline level, but I was still even let down in that regard to an extent. It's the action sequences weren't great. I don't know what else to say here.
All right, I know exactly what to say.
Julianne Moore was pretty fun. Need to see more of her.
She's terrible in the movie. I thought so. I thought she didn't know what movie she was supposed to be in. I thought she was on drugs or something. Because, unlike Sam Jackson, who fit the first film so well and was such a good Bond villain, she felt like, have you seen Tomorrow Never Dies with the Pierce Brosnan Bond film? Like that guy in that movie that's like, I'm gonna do newspapers and I'm gonna rule the world with newspapers or whatever. It felt like that. Like this person just completely out of touch. The 50s thing was weird. I really can't. I can't stand the movie. And it angers me.
One more point. Sorry, I guess a small one. Edward Holcroft, who plays Charlie, who's the robot arm defector guy. Okay, he's not a bad actor. He's fine, but in terms of on-screen presence as a sidekick, he is no Sofia Boutella.
Oh, of course not.
Instead, they replaced Sofia Boutella with 2 robot dogs, and it's no good.
All right.
No.
All right, Charlie. Let's get to the feature presentation.
Who is building the robots in Poppy's empire?
And now, our feature presentation.
Alright guys, this is a feature presentation, in which case we talk about the big topic of the week. Didn't think of an intro, so I'm just going to talk about it. Blade Runner. Trillbee, you've never seen this movie, am I correct?
Yeah, the first time I saw Blade Runner was about 2 hours ago.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you, we're going to go, you know what, we're at an hour 15, we're going to go full spoilers for Blade Runner, we're going to go full spoilers in about 30 seconds. Let me give a quick rundown. In Blade Runner, if you guys don't know, is about a cop hunting down androids, and there's a lot of themes, and it's 30 years old, so if you haven't seen it, oh well. Spoiler talk. Trillbee, what do you think about Blade Runner?
Okay, before walking into Blade Runner, or sitting down in my living room to watch it on my laptop, I feel like I'd already seen Blade Runner, because it's so much of the aesthetic, so much of the themes about artificial intelligence, what it means to be human stuff. Yeah, and also just the iconography and the quotes and the lines and everything. It's one of those films that I already felt like I had seen. So with that in mind, I was a little let down by Blade Runner.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how you couldn't be.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that I was expecting this 10 out of 10 amazing masterpiece, and I was expecting a tour de force. I was expecting just maybe a pulpy sci-fi film from the 80s that maybe had some larger ideas on the mind. And I loved the aesthetic of it. I think it was really well directed. The performances were really good, particularly from Rutger Hauer. Who was a great presence. But I kind of feel like, even knowing what the themes are meant to be, having watched countless videos, having read so many articles and books...
If you've recently watched American Dad, they did an episode of this, essentially just Blade Runner. It's pretty funny.
I think I need to rewatch that. I'm not sure which episode that is.
It's Steve and Snot make clones to take to prom, and they end up becoming, their daughters, essentially. It's really fun, and then Stan has to shoot them down. It's a really cool episode. They essentially just do Blade Runner.
But yeah, I kind of knew the themes going in. I'd seen so many editorials and think pieces and such. But then, while watching the film, I was like, yeah, I'm sure that the writers think those things. I don't necessarily think that Blade Runner has that on its mind. I don't know, maybe it is. I am kind of like the critics in the 1980s who did dismiss it at first as just being a bit slow and but looking great and sounding great and being a technical achievement, and maybe it does I need to sit on it for a bit. But honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I was watching this for the podcast, I've kind of felt compelled to either turn off or nap halfway through. not a bad film. There's too much great technically about it in the performances, and there's just a great vibe to the film, like a great atmosphere that's soaked over the entire Enterprise. But it's still, I don't think there was that much hooking me into it. I don't think there was that much interesting. And even the big question that people have been asking that we're supposedly going to get the answer for in 2049 is Deckard a replicant. I never felt the film was even remotely putting that option on the table.
Okay.
Maybe I'm missing something, and maybe I was drifting in and out of consciousness because I'm very tired. But I don't even think that, from what I could tell, unless I watch it again and find something else, Rutger Hauer is not Rutger Hauer. Harrison Ford as Deckard is presented as nothing more and nothing less than just a human cop, and I don't even know why he is particularly qualified to take out the replicants. What makes him so special? I don't know why is this guy the person who we're following? I don't think the film really justified why we're following him. Apart from the fact that Harrison Ford is the lead, and we like Harrison Ford, except when he's potentially sexually assaulting a replicant.
Yeah,
that scene,
yeah.
Regardless of everything, that scene I do not think has aged well. I don't know, but that's my initial thought. But I know there's probably a lot of smarter people than me who are yelling at me for not understanding if androids dream of electric sheep. But maybe I do have to sit on it for a bit longer and give it a rewatch. I watched the final cut just to clarify.
See, I was about to ask.
I watched the final cut because I know that there's 15 segments of voiceover that people hate about the original film. So I watched the final cut, and I think I liked more about it than I didn't. But I was maybe expecting a bit more, and I was expecting more on the brain. I was expecting to ponder a lot more at the end of it than I ultimately did. But maybe you can change my mind, or maybe we can just agree, and that's the end of the podcast. Trey, what did you think of Blade Runner?
Okay, so here's what I will say, because I'm not going to belittle you or berate you for not enjoying the film.
Trillbee, you're a dummy, a big fat dummy.
He's a phony, a big fat phony. Well, just because, for one, if all film is subjective, and if you like the film, if you don't like the film, that's not my problem. That's how your brain works. So whatever. But another thing is, when I first watched the film, fun fact about the Movie Mania podcast, I watched Blade Runner for the first time for Movie Mania 2-ish years ago, for when we did our Ridley Scott episode. And I felt fairly similar to how you felt, in the sense of I watched it and I was like, it's fine, it's good, I liked it, I guess. Rewatching it about a week ago, I adored it. I had a really good time with it. I don't know, and I don't want to say it's a maturity thing because you're older than me, so it's clearly not that, though it might have been in my case.
Well, that's the thing about films. Maybe some of them, by their very mood and their atmosphere and their pacing and their themes, they do have to do have to sit on them for a while. It's probably one of the reasons why it didn't get a good reception when it came out in '82.
Well, I felt the same way about Inglourious Basterds. When I first watched Inglourious Basterds, I didn't like it that much. I'm like, it's fine, I guess. But going back and looking back on it, it's really good. And same thing for Pulp Fiction. But it's one of those films that, for me at least, it's just nice to see something that, it's my kind of movie. It's dark, it's dreary, it doesn't have a happy ending. It's violent, and it's about something. Those are my kind of movies. I guess those are the movies that I personally love. And what I love more about Blade Runner is that it felt like Ridley Scott was... Because what I got from it, what a lot of people don't talk about, is the God complex of it. Stuff that Ridley Scott has clearly gone on and talked about later on in his career, for better or for worse. But the idea of something being created and it wanting to know what it is and why it is what it is not something that has been new to Ridley Scott's career. It was a big topic of Prometheus. It almost ruined Alien Covenant, despite Michael Fassbender's fantastic performance. But it was started, I would imagine, way back when he did Blade Runner, when Roy Batty, who was in Nexus 6, representing the kind of newest, latest iteration, kind of like the new iPhone, if you will, for the androids. And he goes and finds his creator and asks, he comes to his creator asking for more life, essentially. And I think that those themes, and I think that's where the movie really excels in terms of its theming. In terms of what makes Deckard a replicant or not a replicant, I'm not well versed enough into the lore of Blade Runner and the unicorns and all that stuff, the origami, to really genuinely I don't want to say care, but really get invested in that whole ordeal, that whole side story, that whole theory about whether or not Deckard is a replicant. I think it makes sense. And I think perhaps you have this feeling of why we're following Deckard is perhaps because he is a replicant that is hunting down his own kind, which then you can talk about the issues of race and slavery and whatnot. But at the same time, when you were talking, I was looking at your tweets, and I do believe, I don't know if projection is the right word, but finding your own answers, I think might be a good way to put it. People are, in the same way, we're not going to get too political here, but in the same way that when people hear certain... Going back to ancient civilizations, when it would rain, people thought, oh, we've done something bad, and so now we're raining and things are flooding. Or when the crops would grow good, it's like, oh, we killed this person and the crops grew, so now we need to kill people to make the crops grow better. I think people are latching on to Blade Runner and interpreting it in their own specific way, but I'm not sure if projection is the word I would use. But in terms of Blade Runner as a movie on its own, I think it's gorgeous. I think everyone's really good in it. I think the music's incredible. And I think that for a film set in the 80s, it feels very 70s in that it's not like, you know, the films that would go on to later define the 80s in terms of 80s sci-fi, or it's not even like Star Wars, which in many ways changed the way we looked at sci-fi. It feels far more like Alien or Close Encounters. Or not even Close Encounters, more like THX 1138. Like that kind of more dystopian sci-fi that I think, in my mind, made me latch onto it. The rape scene's weird, though. Won't lie to you. That was odd. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird comparison, but I think it's one that will make sense for maybe a lot of people, which is why I'm saying it. I kind of treat the whole is Deckard a replicant question the same way I treat who are Rey's parents in Star Wars The Force Awakens, in that I do not remotely care about the answer to that question, because it seems like the movie does not care about the answer to that question. I'm trying to work with just what the film's giving me here, and I don't...
absolutely.
Well, because I think the whole in Force Awakens, when what's her name, Maz Kanata says, "Oh, you know that they're not coming back. You must look forward." Then I kind of take that as, oh, okay, we're not meant to care about the question. We're not meant to care about that. We're meant to care about what.
The point of Blade Runner is Deckard replicant. It's whether we should be doing this in the first place. That's what they're asking. Yeah.
But I'm not saying that there's absolutely nothing on the mind of Blade Runner. There is the God complex themes, and there is like what is the value of life. There's this guy who just lives a day-to-day existence in what seems like a pretty miserable place that's overcrowded, overpopulated, and it's all it's like from a distance it all seems beautifully crafted and colourful, but when you get right down to the surface on the streets, it actually seems like a pretty terrible environment and a terrible place to live. But that is that life necessarily better or worse than someone who only lives a 4-year lifespan and sees the beauties of the universe and sees everything? And just because that's an artificial life, does that diminish that? Does that make it any less?
and if they can't share that with the world, then what's the point of them going out to see it?
Yeah.
You know, like I think you know, Roy Batty's speech at the end, which was partly improvised, which is incredible. You know, like of how he's seen all these amazing things in space that we'll never be able to witness.
Yeah.
Because he's just there to be a service droid, or whether, you know, be to mine or have sex with, you know, and yet he has all this incredible stuff in his brain, and then it all just fades away.
Yeah.
And it all just kind of like tears in rain, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff to me is really profound. I think that's partially why I latched onto this movie more the second time. But at this different from you, however, I walked into Blade Runner the first time thinking that this is going to be a masterpiece, as a lot of people have claimed it to be. And unlike movies like The Shining or Chinatown, I didn't agree with them. So, you know.
Yeah, with Blade Runner, I love the whole production of it, especially since it was 1982 and a lot of it was like model work or was just in-camera effects. I think it's a brilliant technical achievement, and like from the time period that it was trying to replicate the far-flung future of 2019, it's always interesting to see a look at the future from a time when they couldn't comprehend something like the internet or something as complex as the mobile phones that we use day in, day out. So it's a future that we are meant to be living in, but because it's diverged so differently from what we're currently living in, if that makes sense. Because they in the 80s and the 70s and the 50s, they would look at the future as being these massive buildings, these massive structures that we created, not necessarily our advances in communication, which has been the main thing and the main driving force of us for the past 20, 30 years. Which I guess find that really interesting.
Which makes me also really excited for 2049 when you realize that this is going to be 30 years moving forward, and you know what and from everything that I've heard, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So like my question is, you know, what questions are they asking here? What answers will we get from the questions asked in the first film? You know, are they going to continue the theme of, you know, creation and all that stuff? Or are we going to get something more along the lines of, you know, the end of it all? Because I feel like if they're going in the direction I think they're going to go, I think Deckard's going to be a replicant, and that's the plot of 24 Knives, that Ryan Gosling has to hunt down Deckard because he's a replicant. But I don't know. I'm so excited to see what they're going to do with 24, especially because Denis Villeneuve and Roger Deakins.
Well, if Deckard's a replicant, then that brings to mind, like, how has he survived this long? And that might be what they're trying to figure out. Especially if they're Jared Leto, who I'm assuming is trying really, really hard to be as good as Rutger Hauer is. But he's going to try and figure out how to extend the life force, sort of like the lifespan of his creations, maybe. I don't know. I don't really know much about the plot for Blade Runner 2049 outside of the trailers, and those have been really vague, intentionally so, and that's absolutely fine.
So excited.
Although whenever you see like a TV spot, it's like he's building an army of robots and we need to stop him together. Like, as when you're trying to get a mass market appeal audience, I get that's probably not going to be remotely the plot.
That's new. That's news to me. I hope that's not the plot. I hope you didn't just ruin that for me, Trillbee.
well, I think because it's a TV spot and it's like we're trying to sell a sci-fi action film in 2017 to a TV spot audience.
I saw a spot for Blade Runner on NFL. I'm like, no one in the NFL is gonna watch Blade Runner. Like, that's not your crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one watching. It's like play an American Sniper spot, sure. You know, like, but that's not. You know, you're shooting to the wrong market.
Yeah, well, one reason that the film was not well received in the 80s, the original Blade Runner, was because the studio was marketing it as an action-adventure film, and that was absolutely not the case for the end result.
It's a neo-noir thriller.
Yeah, exactly, and it is absolutely a noir film, down to like the grizzled detective cop who has the femme fatale female sidekick kind of.
Yeah, like really down to the point where he gets back to his apartment. There's a femme fatale on his desk or whatever. Like everything about it feels very classic 1950s detective movie.
And how there's even the scene where it's a weird choice to film it behind glass, and most of the dialogue is muffled and obscured. Where he goes to that shop and he grabs the guy by the tie and starts yelling at his face. I can't remember exactly who that was. A lot of it's kind of glazed over me. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what the plot points were in the second act. I feel like you maybe could have lost 20 minutes from the film and maybe been a bit benefited for it. In terms of the Deckard stuff, I think the replicant stuff you keep, and that's the most interesting part. Harrison Ford's a good on-screen presence, and he's charismatic and he's great and he can hold the camera and everything. But for him tracking down the replicants, I felt was the least interesting part of the film. I didn't find him a particularly interesting character. Like I said, I don't know why is Deckard like the person who was assigned to do it. He doesn't seem particularly good at it, especially towards the end when he's getting the crap beaten out of him.
He's a pretty good shot.
Yeah, he's a pretty good shot, but he's terrible when chasing that snake stripper lady. He gives away his position really easily. He can't navigate his way through a crowd. There's the funny bit where she breaks out of the back room, and she seems to deliberately run into that guy in the back alley, and then Harrison Ford runs out and does the exact same thing. I just thought that was unintentionally funny. But yeah, he seems particularly terrible at his job, even when it comes to identifying a replicant in a room full of dolls. I feel like that's the type of thing he would be trained to do. But yeah, the stuff revolving around Deckard, I'm really indifferent about. The stuff with the replicants, however, was much more interesting, and the relationship they were having with the Sebastian guy, and he goes to meet his creator.
Yeah. I loved all that.
Yeah, and how I think there's like
even the James Hong guy, the guy that makes his eyes. where they go. I think that's your introduction to Roy, isn't it? Where they go and find the guy that makes the replicant eyes, and just seeing like how he's going through the hierarchy of people that made him who he is.
It is. It's interesting when you do have these artificial intelligence pieces of fiction where they actually can go and meet their creator, literally. Whereas you do have this idea of an omnipresent god in the sky, or this or if you're going by Monty Python, this weird bearded man in the clouds. You do have this sort of abstract concept. We cannot go and meet our creator, so that's one thing I love about sci-fi, and it's what I liked about their journey in Blade Runner, seeing that personified.
Yeah.
And then he does tear his eyes out. At least he crushes his eyes.
He again, J.J. Abrams, like honestly, you know what I mean? Because that's what Khan does to bloody RoboCop and Into Darkness. Just like just the exact same thing. Sorry, hit my microphone. There's a listener question here. A couple of these are about Blade Runner, so I feel like we could answer these.
Okay.
During the Blade Runner discussion.
But I will just say, like with the replicant stuff, I did do a quick bit of research about the characters. Like Pris, who is one of the replicants, apparently in a sequel novel.
Is she the one that does all the flips? Or is she the one that?
She's the one. Yeah, she's the one who does the flips, and she's got the eye makeup around her eyes.
Okay.
It's suggested in a Blade Runner sequel novel that she's actually a woman who believes she's a replicant. Like there's nothing in the Blade Runner film to indicate that.
No.
But I just think that's just a fun dynamic maybe to look at. In
a nice scene, I think, which the film is full of. And like I said, like in my opinion, the film works both as just a regular sci-fi action film or sci-fi detective noir film, and a film with a lot of theme and complexities behind it.
Yeah.
Where I think which name was Pris, when she like hides in the trash, and I think Sebastian finds her, or someone finds her.
Yeah, Sebastian.
And and I think that's a really nice scene, and it's almost creepy, but at the same time, you get the sense of this guy is. You get this sense of there's something off about this guy, but it's not malicious, and I don't know. It just has this ambiguity. There it is, ambiguity to it. I worked through that, truly. this ambiguity to it that I think a lot of the film has, and I love the ending. I love the way the film ends, because it's just like Deckard finally realized that there's no point to kill these robots. In fact, but at the same time, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you know, the movie's trying to present this idea of maybe we shouldn't be creating these things just to have sex with them, and then Deckard forces this thing to have sex with him. Like, I don't, you know, there's this weird hypocrisy there in terms of what the movie's trying to say.
Yeah, but when Roy quote unquote dies at the end of the film, that I kind of felt a little like. A big aspect of the film that I was enjoying was completely gone, and I just was not that interested in the ending, really. Like, I know that he's probably comes to the conclusion that you shouldn't be killing the replicants, and what is life, and what is the value of life and memories and stuff like that.
What is life?
Yeah, I get all of that, but it's also because I know I'm not asking for elaborate backstories, but how long has Deckard been doing this? Why has he not come to this conclusion before this?
Fair.
He even says when he's got that initial introduction to Rachel, saying the replicants are like any machine. They're either a hazard or they're useful. Or I'm probably butchering the quote. So what about this particular experience was different from what he's done before? Like I said, I love the replicant stuff and the theming but it's Deckard who is just such a blank slate protagonist. I just can't get remotely involved in what he's doing. Like,
fair.
Maybe
that's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I look at it as Han Solo. Maybe that's my honest opinion.
Well, maybe the charisma I see is just because I just do see.
I dropped my thumb. Sorry.
That's cool. But like the charisma that I maybe see from Harrison Ford is mainly because of stuff I've seen him in previously. I think that Deckard is just a bit of a boring character, to be honest, and I don't really like. I said, he's not even particularly good at what he does. But he manages to kill Leon by sheer dumb luck. Like he gets completely overpowered effortlessly. He gets the gun knocked out of his hand, and then Rachel's the one to take him out. He's terrible at his job. He has one job.
He kills two, at least. He kills two of them.
Yeah, but terribly. And he only kind of like, I don't even know what happened with Pris. Like one moment she's completely overpowering him, sat on his shoulders, and then the next she's convulsing on the floor. No idea what happened there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I did miss something, but yeah, like I said, he seems terrible at his job, so I don't quite. Maybe they'll make fun of that in Blade Runner 2049, like, oh, you were the original Blade Runner, and you were really shit. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know. I'm looking forward to Blade Runner 2049. I love Roger Deakins' cinematography already. I think Ryan Gosling is just a perfect fit for the sequel, and for the original, I think there are a lot of themes to explore. And although maybe one reason I'm not gravitating to it is because I've come to Blade Runner so late comparatively. Like I've only saw it a few hours ago, and it was released in 1982. Many of the themes it explores are themes that I have seen many contemporary films do as well. Maybe if I saw this in its original time period in the 80s, then I'd probably be more blown away by it, or maybe like consider the themes a lot more. But this is stuff I have seen before in many other films about artificial intelligence. I'm not going to blame the movie for that. I'm just trying to maybe rationalise why I have what is clearly a minority opinion in 2017. But no, I didn't dislike Blade Runner. I liked it a lot. Well, maybe not a lot. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It was alright.
Yeah. Alright. There's a question here from Alex Zapata on the Facebook page. He says Blade Runner is one of the few classic films that people seem to be divided on. Why do you think that is, and how can a film be remembered for so long when people are so mixed on it?
Because Deckard's really shit.
I just want to really make sure that point's made, huh?
No, well,
I don't know. You go first.
I think it has to do with the genre trappings in a way, because Blade Runner, from on the surface, seems like it could be a really accessible film. It seems like it's got robots, it's got violence, it's set in a dystopian maybe future. It's got the noir aesthetics, but it's actually a lot. It's not like those films you generally see that iconography in. It's a lot slower paced. It's a lot more methodical. So maybe people get blindsided by that in a way. Maybe they are expecting an action adventure and get something else. Because I think expectations going into a film does influence what your final thoughts on that film are, at least before repeat viewings. And when you do get some films which deal with heavier or weightier topics, there's going to naturally be some division, whether or not people agree with those themes or even understand those themes or are in the mood to even talk about them. Because I know some people, maybe they love cinema and appreciate film and everything, but sometimes they do just want to see shit blow up. and maybe they're just like, okay, I don't dislike films with weighty themes and great ideas and topics and such, but I just wanted to see Bad Boys Blade Runner. I wanted to see Will Smith shoot a replicant and then say shit just got real. Is that too much?
Sometimes you ain't seen Bad Boys 2. You know, sometimes you just need a Bad Boys 2 in your life. I don't know. I think you kind of hit on the nose in a sense. I feel like some people just, why people wouldn't like the film. I think I don't know if it's because I don't know if it's because they don't want a movie like that. I think sometimes it's just a matter of, and I don't want to be that guy that's like, you just don't get it. But, you know, sometimes people just don't, they won't see certain things, or certain things won't click when they watch it. You know, they'll see this guy on the roof talking about nonsense we haven't actually seen in the film, you know, about near Orion or whatever, and what it means to be like, you know, tears and rain and all that stuff. And they'll just look at that and say, oh, this guy just had some words, and then he died. You know, I think some people won't understand, or maybe won't comprehend at first, this meaning. I'm just speaking from experience, from what I've experienced when I watched Blade Runner, and I watched the tears and rain bit. I'm just like, that's a cool line, I guess. Oh yeah. And and then going back and looking at it again, maybe now that I know what happens, I know every plot point, and I know what to expect, I can look at it from a different perspective and say, but what is this? What really is this movie? Not necessarily what do I like the movie, but what is it supposed to be? You know? Yeah,
it's also, it's one great thing about a film and how subjective it is, and that not all films are made for everyone. Like you do get, not to belittle Star Wars or anything, but that is a crowd pleaser. That is something that's made for the masses. That's something that moves at a good clip. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's funny. Whereas Blade Runner it's not trying to be those things. It is, but it still has similar genre trappings. It does have robots. It does have futuristic sci-fi cities and such. So just because they're in the same genre or share similar aesthetic conceits does not necessarily mean they're for the same audience. And if you're not into Blade Runner, or if you're not into even Star Wars or anything, that's absolutely fine. Division's just natural, and no matter what film you make, no matter how critically acclaimed it is, you are still going to have some naysayers. You're still going to have some people who don't get it, and that is okay.
Yeah. All right.
I liked the owl.
I think. Oh yeah, I like the whole reflection in the ice thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that actual aesthetic choice for the replicants was really cool. I don't know how they filmed it, or if it was contact lenses, because it was the 80s. I don't know, or if it was added after the fact. But it made them really captivating screen presences.
Yeah,
really like that.
Okay. I don't have much else to add from the Blade Runner conversation. So, I mean, if you want to jump into listener questions, Shelby, we can.
Yeah, if we've got more about Blade Runner, or is it just the one?
No, I think that was just the one question about. There's someone brings up Blade Runner in another question, but the question's not about Blade Runner.
Okay,
so we can answer that in the next segment.
But before we move on, so do you have expectations for 2049 other than it's going to be probably a gorgeous film?
I was going to say, besides the fact that it's going to look incredible, and I'm upset that my town that I'm in is not showing it in IMAX. Ooh. Because I believe Kingsman will still be playing in IMAX in that theater, which pisses me off a lot. But what I will say is, I have faith in Denis Villeneuve, because despite him not impressing me with Prisoners or Sicario, Arrival blew me away in certain aspects. And I think that from everything I've heard, it's a very good film, and I really like Ryan Gosling. I thought he was probably my best part about La La Land, despite him not getting the love I thought he deserved for that movie. I like everybody involved. Robin Wright seems to be on a kind of a bit of a stretch this time around, playing just supporting characters in movies like this or Wonder Woman. Jared Leto is hit or miss for me recently, but if he's good in it, then he's good in it.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that they don't do the first movie again. I'm hoping that this is more like, this isn't necessarily Force Awakens in the sense of like, let's just remake the first movie and do it 30 years later. Because right now, that seems to be the formula of how we're going to do this movie. We're going to just do the movie from the 80s again, just to make it look different. I'm hoping that they actually progress the world and progress the characters, and it's actually a sequel set 30 years later.
Yeah, I've similar expectations as well. Having actually seen Blade Runner now and actually knowing what on earth this universe is about, I think I need to maybe rewatch the marketing, rewatch the trailers, and see if and see if I consider them any differently. But yeah, looking forward to it. We get it October 15th. We get it mid-October. I think you get it a week before us.
Damn it. Okay.
Yeah, I know. October 13th, I think.
No episode next week, guys.
It's okay. I will go and see something else. Although we got American Made 2 months ago.
Did you really?
We did. I was actually kind of surprised when I saw like all the YouTubers I'm subscribed to start posting American Made reviews, and I was like, guys, you're like 2 months behind. What are you on about, dude?
Wow. Yeah, we just got that here.
Yeah.
Wow, that came out the 29th. Oh my god. Wow, okay. I was looking forward to that movie too.
Yeah, we got it in August.
Wow, okay.
Why did American Made come out in the UK first?
I don't know, man. It's like when they released the Marvel movies like a month early in Europe. I'm like, but okay, it's our movies. What are you doing, man?
Maybe they thought, the UK, maybe they liked The Mummy, so let's get the Tom Cruise film in this territory first.
The Mummy did okay in Europe, so now they want to make sure that the UK gets all the Tom Cruise stuff first. Like the UK is where you get your premiere microwaves from. So every Tom Cruise movie has to come out early in the UK.
Well, maybe it's because Tom Cruise was injured in London on Mission Impossible 6. They thought, you know what, we'll release your film a bit early since we broke your leg.
That's his fault, not ours. All right, Shelby, let's get to listener questions.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Okay, Trillbee, this is the listener questions portion of the show. We can try to answer your listener questions on the Facebook page. Man, I'm tired. Wow. Dean Jones on Facebook asks, favorite James Bond villain? Hashtag Dean Jones for the next Bond.
Yeah,
okay, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, because Dean Jones wasn't able to get the role of the 13th Doctor in Doctor Who. Now he's campaigning for the next Bond.
All right.
But favorite Bond villain? There's no wrong answer to this except Oddjob. No one likes Oddjob.
Hold on. Wait a minute. There's no reason to be, so hasty. There isn't. There is a wrong answer, and it's Christoph Waltz from Spectre.
Yeah, but he is the author of all your pain.
The author of all your pain, Mr. Bond.
Oh,
would you like a glass of your delicious milk, Mr. Bond?
I'm not saying he's my favourite, but one of the more unique Bond villains would be Sean Bean in GoldenEye. Because he is a former 00 agent who defects, and I think we need a return to that in the next Bond film, or at least I want to see more.
Didn't we already get that in Skyfall?
Or maybe, but I don't know. You don't really get the sense, apart from the fact that he has a personal connection to M, that he was a 00 agent. Whereas with Alec Trevelyan in GoldenEye, he kind of had a counter to almost everything that Bond did. Which created a really interesting villain dynamic, I think. And plus, Sean Bean is just a load of fun. And his death is brutal. Because he drops like 100 feet, he lands on the ground, survives that impact, and then has a satellite dropped on him. That was brutal, man. And they actually have a shot of him hitting the ground.
Yeah.
Painful. But... yeah, that's just one that comes to mind. There's, of course, Mads Mikkelsen in Casino Royale, who is just a guy who is in way over his head, and he has that torture scene with Bond. To the right! To the right!
I've got an itch, can you scratch it?
It's brilliant. You got Goldfinger, you've got the original Blofeld. There's a lot of great Bond villains here, but I can't settle on one, though. We've got Christopher Lee as the man with the golden gun.
Oh, yeah. You have Christopher Walken in View to a Kill. I believe that's the one he's in. Mm-hmm. You have the villain from Live and Let Die. You have a lot. You have Donald Pleasance as Blofeld's pretty great.
Donald Pleasance.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond. You have the classic. I don't know how you can't go Silva from Skyfall. He's just so electric, and he has such a presence to him. And, you can argue that he's just Bond's Joker, but at the same time, that's kind of what a super arch-villain is supposed to be. He's everything from, hydrogen cyanide to, the last rat standing. He just has a lot of those great moments, a lot of those great villain moments.
Well, his first scene, though, when he's just walking down that corridor
telling
the story of
that,
the rats.
9-minute monologue where he's literally just, shuffling down the hallway so you can have fit the entire... Yeah. And now they no longer want coconut. Now they only want rat. And he's doing the thing with his mouth. He's nibbling.
Yeah.
When he puts his hands on Bond's thighs in this movie, the movie takes a left turn.
Yeah. I didn't want to go for him because he does seem like it's kind of seen as, you're just going for the most recent one, you hipster.
The most recent one is the author of all your pain.
Oh yeah, but I meant one of the more recent ones. But yeah, he's a terrific villain as well. Hydrogen cyanide.
He has a lot of those great moments, when he just to be honest, he destroys Bond's car, so then Bond blows up a house. Just those moments that make Skyfall one of, if not the best Bond film out there. It's such a thrill ride, and he's a huge part of that. We don't meet him for an hour into the movie, which is crazy. But when he's introduced from that point on, the movie just kind of takes this, it kind of shifts into left gear and just keeps moving. You have that great scene, the Tennyson scene, where Thomas Newman's score really shines. And
I love that
he attacks the whatever that is, the precinct or whatever that's supposed to be. I don't know how Britain works. He attacks that area, and M's delivering that speech, and Bond's rushing to save her, and Deacon shoots the hell out of them running down that street. Oh, it's so good. And Silva comes in. We have that great shootout. It's just Silva, I think, makes that movie, and I think that's why he's probably the best Bond villain.
Yeah, I do. I know that it's a slight diversion, but I do love that whole underground set piece where they're trying to chase each other through the London Underground.
Yes.
And
was that supposed to be for me? No, but that is.
Oh, yeah,
and
the train crashes through. It's amazing.
Yeah,
but,
and it looks like a practical effect too, which is great. I feel like it was.
Yeah, I think they use a lot of models for that sequence.
Yeah,
but it's that whole sequence is just it's different as a Brit because there's so much of in July 2005 there was a London Underground bombing, and there's so much iconography taken directly from that day in Skyfall, particularly when he comes out of the underground and he sees the ambulances and everyone around, and then he runs to M while she's reading the Tennyson poem. That it's just one of the best. Like in America, you see so much 9/11 imagery in the film, but for Skyfall, that was they took the 7/7 bombings and did something very similar for that. It's one reason this Skyfall.
It's like that shot in Dark Knight where Batman stands in the rubble and you see the firefighters in the background. It's very 9/11-y. It's maybe the best shot in the movie.
Yeah, or when in Man of Steel where they just 9/11 an entire city.
Yeah, like Man of Steel, where Superman and Lois make out in front of 17 9/11s.
It's one of the best nostalgia critic quotes ever, where it's like, "Oh, so you won, we won." Yeah, could you say that in a place that doesn't look so, I don't know, a 9/11?
Oh yeah, I still love Man of Steel, but man,
I've actually been meaning to do for years. I've been meaning to do an editorial about that underground Skyfall sequence and how it's so 7/7. But
it's so British. It's like we watch Dunkirk. You're like Britain, England.
When
the trailer for The Darkest Hour, that Gary Oldman movie, where he plays Winston Churchill, played before Battle of the Sexes, and I turned to Chris Stafford and I was just like, England. Oscar. I was like, it was so just like.
Well, it's like in Dunkirk when Tom Hardy is clearly trying to audition for the lion on the English flag.
Yeah, like they're clear. Like Nolan just brings out this famous British score, brings in the Winston Churchill speech, and pulls out all these white British actors. Like clearly, Nolan might as well just waved a UK flag. You know what I mean? It's like Michael Bay Pearl Harbor, just America.
Oh god!
But it was good. I still really liked it. But yeah, it's still probably the best Bond villain. All right, so Ned Erdy on Facebook asks, "Who are you guys dressing up as for the best holiday, Halloween?"
I've not got the costume's not set in stone yet, but me and my fiance are going to go as Gomez and Morticia from Addams Family.
Nice, good get. Nice couple's costume. I would have preferred Wednesday and what's the boy's name?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Sorry, I forget his name. Pugsley.
Yeah. Oh, Wednesday and Pugsley. I would have preferred those two. Those are my two. Those are my people. Wednesday Addams, atta girl. I don't know. I can tell you some of my favorite Halloween costumes. What have I done? A few years ago, I was Jake from State Farm. Which, if you don't know, I think I've told this story in the podcast before. Do you know what State? Do you know what State? Thanks. Do you know what State Farm is, Trillbee?
I don't. I'm going to Google it.
It's an insurance company, and there's a commercial. And if you guys probably know what I'm talking about if you live here in the States. And there's this guy. He's on his phone late at night, and he's like, "Yeah, can you do that for me? That sounds great." And the wife comes down. It's like, "Who are you talking to?" And the husband's like, "It's Jake from State Farm." And then the wife picks up the phone. It's like, "What are you wearing, Jake from State Farm?" And then it cuts to this guy in the insurance office. It's like, khakis. And it's this really funny commercial. And the wife's like, "She sounds hideous." And the guy's like, well, she's a guy, so. And this is a really cool commercial. And it was like a part of pop culture for a really long time. And so that year, I went as Jake from State Farm, but I'm black. So, and the guy commercial's white, so instead I went as Blake from State Farm, who is essentially just black Jake from State Farm. And every time I was like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jake from State Farm," and everyone was like, "Are you wearing your khakis?" I'm like, "Yeah, look at me. I'm wearing khakis." I got that question probably 13 times in like 2 minutes. I'm like, obviously, I'm wearing khakis, man. Look at me. One year I was Nick Fury. I'm trying to think. I was a creepy old man one year. I had some creative costumes. I can't think of what. I don't know what I'm gonna do this year. I didn't dress up last year. I sat and ate pizza and watched Halloween. So
well, that means you need to do 2 costumes this year then.
Yeah, I might do. I tell you what, I'll do Harvey Dent and Two-Face, or I'll do.
Very clever.
There's a Robot Chicken sketch where like Harvey Dent's like it's like Three-Face. Call me Three-Face. Call me Four-Face. You know, like he like falls like on like a vat of like burning oil or something. He's like, call me Three-Face with this 3-sided die. You know. I don't know.
I've speaking of Halloween costumes, I've got a friend who like. Almost every year she does dress up as Wednesday Addams, so it's a bit repetitive, but she pulls it off like 1,000,000% perfect, so we don't mind. Like it's just like a complete spitting image. I love Halloween; it's awesome.
My friend Christian last year did go. I think Halloween was on a school day last year I believe, and so he went as Clark Kent. Okay. And so he kind of like he had the old flippy journal notebook. He had the glasses, the old kind of puff, kind of too big for him coat. He had the whole Clark Kent getup, and he has an afro, so his hair looked pretty good too, considering the fact that he went as Clark Kent. I'm trying to think of who I don't know who I'd go as this year. Looking at some of my favorite movies, I don't know.
I am Black Clark Kent.
I am Bart Klent. I was Nick Fury. I can't remember what was I after Nick Fury. I don't remember. Oh, I was Nick Fury, but then my eye patch broke, so I was the Terminator.
Okay.
I had to make adjustments, so I just went and got some sunglasses. Like, no, I'm the Terminator. And I talked like that for 3 hours, and my throat hurt afterwards. I'm trying to think of. I can't remember what I did in 2015. I'm sure I did something awesome. Oh, losers. Oh well. I remember. I was a substitute teacher. I remember for 2015.
Okay.
I was a substitute teacher.
Here's one. Here's just an idea that I just thought of. If you're going on Halloween for a night out to get drunk and everything, and you're going out in costume, take a shot or take a drink whenever you see someone dressed up as Pennywise, because that is going to be the 2017 costume. Last year it was slutty Harley Quinn.
Crazy. There's going to be a lot of cops out. Because I don't know if you knew about this thing in America where there was clowns.
Oh, we had them here.
You had them in the UK too.
Yeah. They somehow walked over the water and they came here.
Like they traveled via the sewer system.
It wasn't quite as prevalent, but they were here.
Yeah, it was so prevalent here in the States that like I thought it was just like in a couple cities across America. No, it was apparently everywhere. Like. It was crazy enough to, like, my friend took pictures of a guy dressed up as a clown in a neighborhood 2 neighborhoods down from where I live, and I was like, I swear to God, if someone comes up to me as a clown, they're getting hit. The mugging's gonna get reversed, and they're gonna die. Like, I don't mess around with clowns. And so I feel like the Pennywise costume this year, I'm interested to see how that's gonna play out. One year I was just I said I was a creepy guy. Like I essentially I like hiked up my pants, got a fake mustache, and like put on some like thick glasses, and I walked around. And I was like, trick or treat. Hi, I need some candy for my van, and I just kept doing that to parents. And there was one I got 3 families to get their child away from me. It was wonderful.
Oh, no.
It was pretty
You
great.
need to dress up as a Catholic priest and be like, hey, I need candy to lure the kids.
Oh,
You've
got it.
That's going to terrify.
I'm going to go as a priest this year.
Yeah, because nothing keeps kids up at night like a Catholic priest after dark.
Like a nun.
Yeah. When you said the nun, I just thought back to the Conjuring films, and then I thought Trey's Halloween 2017 costume is Black Annabelle.
Blannabelle, rated R.
Blackabelle.
Blackabelle.
Not to get too much into race, but if you were to go as Halloween this year as Dracula, would you automatically be Blackula?
Of course, Trilby.
Is that how it works?
And not go as Blackula.
Like, I don't know if you have to make a conscious choice for it, or is it just does it just happen?
Well, I think you have to make a conscious choice to like. I think if you want to, because like I've never heard of whiteface, but I feel like if you want to go like, because if you want to paint your face white, you can do that, and then you're going as Dracula.
Yeah.
Because I remember I acted in a play, random tangent before we end the show here. I acted in a play in like 6th grade. We did A Christmas Carol, and I was Jacob Marley, and so they had me up in like chains, and they had me in the ghostly getup, and they had to paint my face in like this weird combined like white and green brown makeup,
because
and I was just like, and it itched
we've got a black kid in all of the chains. This does not look good. We need to paint his face white.
Yeah. I guarantee it's because if a black guy walked out in chains, it's like, why is Solomon Northup telling Scrooge that?
Oh God, I didn't realize that Scrooge was into slavery.
Music will be haunted by 3 spirits, master.
Shut up, Black Tiny Tim.
It's like in Family Guy, they did the British episode of Family Guy. Shut up, British Meg. Shut up, Black Tiny Tim. Shut up, Bitey Tim.
Oh boy, I'm going to hell. I've made peace with
There's
that.
a seat reserved right next to Hitler for me, right there. Right there. Yeah, he's keeping it warm. Oh, man. All right, guys.
Do we have any more questions, or do we end there?
We'll end it here. Well, we're at 2 hours. We'll keep it short this week. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Like and subscribe. Thank you for 1,000 subscribers. Trilbee, where can people find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Mr. TARDIS Reviews. Hopefully, if the BBC relent with their content ID and copyright stuff, you should see my next Doctor Who review in the next week or two. They've been holding that video hostage. That's annoying. You can also, I'm currently halfway through filming my horror short, Before He Wakes. If you'd like to get your name in the credits and also contribute to the project and get behind the scenes stuff, you can go to my Patreon. If you contribute for the months,
just put me in like special things. Just cause.
Might do actually. If you pledge for the months of September and or October, you get your name in the credits and you get access to behind the scenes stuff and also behind the scenes vlogs. The last video I posted was we had an issue with one of the props, a very big problem. I'll leave it at that. You have to be a patron if you want to find out what that's all about. Unless you're Trey, I might just send you the video because probably shouldn't say that to the paying patrons. But yeah. And also my website www.
Oh sure, give it to the black one.
www.trilbee.com, and also if you follow me on Twitter at Trillbee Reviews, you should be able to see our finished Halloween costumes once they're all done, come near the end of the month. So Trey, where can they find you online when you're not being Black Tiny Tim?
Please, sir, may I have some more, yo?
Please, sir, may I have some just general respect and emancipation?
Freedom, sir. Freedom? Alright, you can find me on...
Decrease the surplus population. Don't take a knee here, Tiny Tim.
Oh, Jesus. We're never going to touch that. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. All at Podcast Media. That's pretty much... Yeah, that's all. College is tiring. I need a nap. I'm gonna go sleep after this and still wake up late for school tomorrow. Yeah, catch you all later. Our Movie Maniacs.